want to be a rock star. I always wanted to play in a band when I was a kid. But when I say this movie is exercising my rock and roll demons, it means in terms of my style and music, there's no rules.
We carry 6 motion picture cameras at all times, all the stock ready to go, depending upon the look and the feeling he's trying to give.
I think of Tony as like the Sid Vicious of the British filmmakers, you know, like with him and Ridley and Alan Parker and Adrian Lyne and those guys who came out of advertising in London and were creating these very lush images, and they were known as the great stylists, and they continue to be the great stylists and innovators.
What I always do, I do commercials between movies, and I get a chance to experiment and try stuff, whether, you know, it was for BMW, which is a short film, you know, which was shot in Vegas, and a lot of that style came to Man on Fire, and then after Man on Fire, I did for Amazon.com, and this was more to do with not using hand crank or reversal stock, which is what I call heightened reality, but I built off that and used a lot of time lapse of 1 frame a second, the shoot sequences, or shooting 6 frames a second, so you get these trails like you're on acid, like you think you get these toffee trails.
Tony Scott has directed lots of Marlboro commercials, and one of her last commercial is a very, very fast editing commercial of Marlboro. And this is why we call it, Marlboro on acid.
He showed me these Marlboro ads out of Europe, and there's certain montage moments where you're going back into Domino's past, and he was going to photograph it in that way, so we just put it in the script, Marlboro on acid, from the commercial.
The look that they got there was one which we then took to another level on Domino. It was the use of high-speed film transferred at high speed in order to give it streaking and the trails.
We're shooting a style that when we see Domino, we see life through her eyes, because she pretty much kind of takes us through the whole movie. We have this Domino vision, which is hand crank cameras running backwards and forwards and shooting 6 frames a second, that kind of creates a visual style that kind of takes you a little bit out of reality, but puts you into her reality.
We discussed the vision, or the look of the film, as being completely different from anything else he's done, in the sense that he has now refined the kinetic camera moves and the use of the hand crank cameras to shoot multiple exposures and to give kineticism to the movie.
What Tony does in his vision is he gives the audience a feeling by the visual technique he's using at the time. And it really enables you to get a sense of what the character's going through just by virtue of what you're watching.
He's always experimenting with different types of cameras and different types of film stock, and the richness of color and the lack of color in certain areas.
It's a nonlinear story, and we're experiencing it as though you've got Tony Scott controlling the TiVo, and that's going to be wild, and what he's recording, and all of a sudden you flip the channel and then you're on Jerry Springer, and then you're in Afghanistan, and then you're in all these different places.
There's forward flashes, there's back flashes, and there's normal time in the movie. And we wanted to give each part of the movie its own look. And the main tool we used was color reversal film, which we cross-processed and photochemically manipulated the film in the lab.
We're shooting just about everything on reversal stock with a cross-process, which gives a whole different look to the movie.
Cross-processing the color reversal film basically means processing it in the wrong developer. It should be processed in a different developer from the print film that we use ordinarily, and by cross-processing it, we force the color palette in a direction that is basically towards red. It has an affinity for red, it also increases the grain and loosens the structure of the film, and it becomes so volatile that a lot of the time it's unmanageable photographically. You have to manage it very carefully.
It's heightened reality. Everything comes back to the characters in the story. And heightened reality means the colors are that much more vibrant. The blacks are blacker, the whites are whiter, the reds are redder.
Using this process was very scary for me, and at the end I told Tony that I haven't been this frightened for a long time. And his response was, well, that's good.
A reversal stock is a dangerous stock in terms of a DP. Because, it can so easily, you can have the camera shooting here and you pan to there and all of a sudden everything is changed by 4 or 5 stops. It means this is a white out over here and it's almost black over there. I think the whole of the Valley of Fire, we underexposed it a lot. The Valley of Fire is this desert, that's white, that's hard shooting with reversal, and it was blown, but it blew in a really interesting way in the end, and we just had to adapt our development technique to fit the way it was looking. But I like those mistakes, and those mistakes sort of inspire, and that's the nature of this movie. I capitalize on those mistakes, and that's what I end up by cutting into the movie. And those mistakes I'll use, it's driven emotionally by what the characters are doing or where they're at in that point in time.
Accidents were what we were looking for in this movie. Tony is a proponent of the magic that comes out of accidents as opposed to the doom and gloom that could come out of them. One of the pluses of going to a digital neg is that you can transfer the film at different speed rates, and a couple of nominal camera speeds, when transferred at certain rates, gave us blurring and smearing and trails when the camera is moved. We used that technique to enhance the nature of what it was that we were filming. So, for example, when the Winnebago crashes because the driver, Alf, has had some of this hallucinogenic coffee, and he's totally out of his mind driving the Winnebago. In order to amplify the effect, we shot at 6 frames per second with the film cameras, and then we transfer the film at 6 frames per second in the video process, and that gives us an amazing look of smearing, trails, and blurred frames. It's not like we went out and just flailed around trying to make experimental looking film. It is the culmination of years of trial and error.
And this is my 3rd movie with Danny. We did Enemy of the State and we did Spy Game together, and we grew up together. I mean, Danny has worked with me for 25 years in terms of commercials, and Danny just felt right for this particular piece in terms of being experimental. And Danny he'd always jump off the edge with me, and I knew I was going to experiment a lot more than normal. And he likes being challenged with his experiments. Yeah.
We were able to try new and improved methods due to the fact we were independently financed, as opposed to studio-backed, where the attitude is far more conservative to experimentation.
And I think as I'm getting older, I'm making bigger jumps. I'm taking less from the last painting and making bigger jumps into new territory.
What Tony has done is he's started a trend, as he's done many times before within the industry, and you'll see after this movie more and more people adopting and trying these techniques that we have tried out, and that's the nature of this business. It does go from word of mouth, from technician to technician, as it does from viewer to viewer. Did you see Tony Scott's latest movie? Did you see what he did? Many people, I'm sure, will mimic what it is that he's done.
You always try to shoot with such texture that you feel you can touch, reach, and smell, and so the next step is 3D and smell around.